went up into the hot seat, kind of got, as I'm putting my sunglasses on, sun was kind of shining, wasn't quite exactly looking at the screen as light went down. That's why my face was so shocked. I didn't see him crash.
No way.
I just heard like a massive roar, and Ronan just grabbed me, and I looked down and he's getting up off the ground, and I'm like, no way. Full gas. I remember trying to brake every corner on the way down, and I got about 3/4 of the way down, and there was only so long I can ride that for.
Oisin O'Callaghan, welcome to the Downtime Podcast, mate. I think it's just the latest in the evening I've ever recorded a podcast.
Yeah, it's sick to be on her eventually. Finally, yeah. It's good to be here.
Thanks, mate. Appreciate it. Let's go right the way back. We've not had you on before, so we'll do the whole like history piece. First off, just tell us a little bit about like where you grew up.
Yeah, so I grew up in the Ballyhour Mountains in Limerick, just like any other kid, living near the woods, riding bikes with my friends, having a good time, and eventually just now I'm here, and it's been a long road on the way in between, so I'm sure we'll get into that, but yeah, it's been a roller coaster.
Definitely, man. So what were you into as a kid? Was bikes like your first love, or were there other things that you kind of dabbled with before bikes became as big as it is for you now?
I'd probably say like many other Irish kids, being young, tractors were probably my main priority.
Good lad.
And that's what I wanted to do as a job for the first few years when I was younger. Obviously,
okay.
Living in the countryside, driving tractors and seeing them drive by every day, that's what I loved. But then bikes took over pretty fast all of a sudden.
Yeah. And was it mountain bikes straight away, or were you cruising around on like BMXs, or what was going on?
It was always like mountain bikes from the start with me. Living in the countryside, it was always kind of in the fields, living close to the mountains. It was just, you're never really near the city for our BMX track, so it was just straight to the mountains.
Yeah. And were your folks into it? Did they ride, or was it just you kind of exploring with your mates?
I think at the start it was just me exploring with my mates, like every other kid, going up at the weekend, having a good time, kind of pushing yourself, hitting jumps, and just getting sketchy and building, just building stuff that you should not be allowed building. You should have an adult watching, and hitting sketchy stuff, crashing. But that's where we learn. We have to learn somewhere.
Yeah.
And I think that's the problem nowadays.
Yeah, too much health and safety, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Kids need to be allowed to go and experiment. And it obviously worked out well for you. Like, was it natural then for you to want to move from, I guess, playing on bikes to wanting to go race them? How do we get to that point?
Yeah, for me, it wasn't never really, I can never really remember a change. It just went like from level to level, and from me growing up kind of looking at, you could say, Greg Callaghan, Dan Wolfe, Dan Sheridan, all these other guys that were kind of at the top of the Irish scene. Yeah. With me riding with him from when I was younger, it just kind of was a natural progression from when I went to the national series, then over to the UK IXSs in Europe. It just kind of, before I knew it, the next step was racing World Cups.
You just kept going.
I just kept going.
Yeah. And I guess like coming from Ireland and wanting to go over to the UK and race nationals, that kind of stuff, like you need your parents behind you. I'm guessing they've been a big support from the early days. Yeah, without having supportive parents, obviously it's not going to really be possible. And thankfully my mum and dad were able to fund me, bring me over. And as a kid, there's no way you're going to be able to be in school, pay for bikes, pay for racing, because it's so expensive. Yeah, you're going to have parents to fund you some way. And to fly over to the UK or to Europe, it's just, there's no other way but to have parents to bring you over. Yeah, they backed you fully. Did they build a gym for you at home? Is that right? Yeah, my dad actually built a gym. So I had a gym for the first few years right in my house, so he didn't have to go anywhere. And with me living so close to the woods, only a couple 100 meters away, and he actually runs the trail centre there. So that was kind of where I suppose you could say it really started. With him running the trail centre with the bike rental and the bike shop. That's just how it started. Looking at my dad doing that, and now it's just taken on. It's like a hobby that's on steroids. Yeah, and even family holidays, right? I think you went to Morzine quite a lot when you were a kid, and got that grounding in riding on bigger kind of alpine style tracks as well, which I guess pays off. Yeah, I've been going to Morzine since like I was 5 years old, and even on the sun holidays that we used to go with my mum and stuff to
Portugal, we'd bring our bikes and try and squeeze in a day or two in the Algarve for some riding there as well.
Amazing. So you started, like you say, going over to the UK, racing nationals, working your way up. Then you started going into Europe, doing some of the IXS Cup and those kind of things.
Yeah.
Like, what level of support did you have at that point? Was there much of a support structure around you other than your family?
At the start, I suppose it was my parents were the main ones.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously it's a massive help with my dad having the bike shop. He's able to get the parts and build up my bikes. But then once I started to do better in the UK and stuff, the bike brands, as a kid, obviously you're not going to get a massive amount of support. But any discount was a massive help, I suppose. Obviously at the time I didn't really realise, because I was just going out riding my bike, having fun, didn't have any care in the world at all. Just we're trying to ride as fast as possible. But my dad was all working behind the scenes and that stuff. But I think at the time they were definitely trying to help out as much as they could, the brands in the UK and the other suppliers.
Yeah, and it was 2019, I think, that YT did their global trip trying to find the next generation of talent, which was a super cool project.
Yeah.
How did you find out about that in the first place? Do you remember?
I actually, my dad never told me about that. He signed me up for it.
No way.
And then once I'd been selected, he told me, and we stayed on after the BDS that year.
Yeah.
It was a couple of days after, and I think there was like maybe 40 or 50 of us in the Europe tour,
which was
in
at Fort William, yeah.
After the race. So Martin Whiteley, which he's mentored a lot of great riders over the years, he was in charge of that. And he picked, there were 6 tours, one in Europe, Japan, South Africa, America as well. I can't remember where the other one is.
Like an Asian one, I think.
Yeah,
I can't remember where exactly it was, yeah.
And then there was like something like 200 or 300 riders in total out of all the 6 trips.
Yeah.
And then 8 of us got picked to go to Granada in Spain, where the YT Mob HQ was back in those days.
So what did you do at that Fort William one? Like, what was the format?
So it started with like a track walk with Angel.
Yeah.
And then like progressed through, he'd watch us session the track, practice the top corners, see how we all rode. Then we done timed runs, chainless runs, and we never really got told like much about it. And then we got told afterwards, or the weeks after, who got picked. But one thing I remember is Martin used to always get us to do a full run. Mm-hmm. And he used to always be testing our like racing kind of senses by, he'd ask us at the end of the week, we wouldn't know what time we done at the time. Yeah. But at the end of the week, he'd ask us, what time do you think you done? And to see like how close we were to getting the time. And he was just trying to, I suppose, see how good racers we were on everything, really.
That's amazing. Did you bond with Angel at that point? So I think you guys have got a pretty good like big brother, little brother relationship.
Yeah. So that year, or the next year after when I joined the team, was definitely a big help having Angel on the team. I spent a lot of time at his house, and having someone that has so much experience, and with me being a first year junior and helped me come up along, was a massive help. So we still super close. We speak to each other like on a regular basis.
That's nice. So you went through the Fort William round then, and you obviously stood out because you were one of the few riders that came from that camp and were taken to Martin's house basically in Spain for the finale. How are you feeling? Because there's this huge like opportunity here to get onto a factory setup. You're a young lad at the time, I'm guessing a bit of a rabbit in the headlights. How was it going out to Martin's and getting involved in that Spain like final, I guess? Yeah,
like my main goal was to be on a factory team coming into the junior ranks. Obviously, it's such a big help having a factory team with a truck, every mechanic, everything. The support is a massive help, and it was just something that I dreamed of for so many years, working my way up through the English rounds, the IXSs. That's what I wanted to be on. Yeah, and that was the goal when I went over to Spain. I was like, I'm going over here to do my best to be on the factory team. But I actually ended up on the first day riding, crashing and spraining my wrist, like really bad. So
was it like a junior mistake? Were you just going balls to the wall?
Such a junior mistake. Angel on the side of the track, and he was watching us again, sessioning on a new track we didn't know. Came into this section way too fast, completely out of control, and like, I don't know what else I was expecting.
So you sat out that camp basically, like that was second run, did you say?
Yeah. And Angel was also, I think, had just got shoulder surgery at the time.
Yeah, okay.
So
Yeah.
he was just coming back. He wasn't really riding too much. So I was just with Angel for the whole few days, really, watching all the other riders doing the timed runs again, everything like that. So I was a bit like, oh, maybe I threw away this opportunity.
Yeah.
I was still like being positive and everything, because I'm quite like a positive person, I would say. Even if I don't qualify or get injured, it doesn't set me back too much. I just get on with it.
Yeah.
So me and Angel were hanging around eating ice cream and stuff for the weekend. Yeah, I actually found out at the end of that week, on the last day, that Martin called me into the office and he's like, yeah, we want to get you on the team for next year.
Unreal. So I guessing you completely weren't expecting that, given what had happened then.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting it at all, because I remember he was like calling us, all the riders in, all 8 of us, for like a debrief, you could say, of the team.
Yeah.
Or not the team, but the week in Granada. And everyone went in, and I was actually last. I didn't take any notice. But I just presumed, yeah, I'm not going to go in because I wasn't riding. It was just let everyone else go in. And I think he sent someone out to like come get me. Like, why didn't I go in? I was like, oh, I wasn't riding all week, so I didn't think that you wanted to say anything. He's like, piece of paper on the table. I was like, sweet.
Unreal.
Yeah.
Did he tell you what he felt he saw in you? Did he explain why, even despite what had happened, like why you got the job?
It was all, at the time, it was just like, I didn't know what was going on. I was like, oh, sick. But yeah, I think he just could see in me that I was a racer, which I kind of proved in the last few years before in the UK and in the IXSs.
Yeah.
With me doing good, so yeah.
Yeah, pretty special opportunity. It must have felt incredible to be like elevated up onto that factory team. What did you do like pre-season to get up to speed with the whole YT mob at that point?
Yeah, so I think was it like 2 weeks after that team camp, I was straight back out riding a bike, trying different sizes. So it wasn't long before I was back on the bike, and then I was over with Angel straight away, getting loads of runs in.
Yeah.
And then first team camp, we were in Spain, we were going to go to Lausa to do a race simulation for later in the year. And the whole world shut down. So that was COVID. And I remember at the time it was so strange. Like, we were still, the whole team was in Spain, team camp. And the restaurant wasn't meant to have anybody in at this time, because we couldn't get home at this stage either. And the police were coming around making sure everyone was inside, and the restaurant wasn't meant to have, or the hotel wasn't meant to have anyone, while we're trying to sort a way to get all the riders home. And it was just chaos. No restaurants were open. Basically within a day or two, the whole place just shut down.
Wild world, eh?
It was wild.
Seems
at
like
the
a
time.
long time ago now. Yeah, it's crazy to think it actually happened. So yeah, super disruptive, right? You've got this incredible offer.
Yeah.
You're just getting into the flow of it, team camps, and then suddenly it's like, boo, shut down, no racing. We don't know when we're coming back. We don't know what we're going to do. You know, the world's gone crazy for a bit. How did that impact you? Like, what did you do with that chunk of time?
I remember at the time I didn't take much notice of it. I just went home, had the whole woods to myself for a few months.
Yeah.
In summer, which usually us racers are away for our home summers. So I was loving life, riding all my local trails, since I hadn't rode as a kid in the dust.
Yeah.
Because usually we only get to ride them in the winter. So for me, it was brilliant. I was doing massive rides every day. And for me, I always believed that the races were going to go ahead. It was never in my head that we weren't going to be racing that year, which my dad also kept me believing.
Yeah.
Which I think a lot of people had give up hope halfway through that summer. They were like, nah, there's no point in racing this year. So for me, I was preparing as if I was still going racing, which I think a lot of people let their guard down.
Yeah.
Me and my dad then went over to Morzine, I think, for like 2 months that summer in our van, lived in the van those 2 months.
Yeah.
Came home for 2 weeks, then went back out to Morzine for the end of the season, over to Leogang and Schladming
Yeah.
for another month or so, right up as far as the start of October. So we're out from like June until October.
Good effort.
Just in the van, and I was smashing runs out every day.
Yeah.
Having a great time. At the time, Dennis Luffman, the two of us,
Yeah.
we were the same age, grew up racing all the British races and IXSs together. So he was also out there with his dad. His dad and my dad were just hanging out.
Nice.
Me and Dennis every day, just be playing 20, 25 runs a day. Chicken nuggets for lunch, up again. Just burning through tyres and brake pads, like just doing junior stuff really.
Yeah.
And yeah, I would say we couldn't have done any more runs if we wanted to coming into those World Cups later that year.
Yeah, pretty well prepared then. And so your first like world level event, I guess, was World Champs.
Yeah, World
in
Champs.
Leogang that year.
Yeah.
New woods, very wet. You Irish lot seem to absolutely thrive when the conditions are horrible. Like, is that just because of that's what it's like in your winters and you're used to it, or?
I suppose, but I don't know what it is, but definitely me and Ronan, if it starts raining at a World Cup, there's a lot of people that are complaining, miserable, they're scared. I just thrive off the negative energy. It makes me feel like, I don't know, I'm some kind of gladiator or something. And Ronan says the same. I heard him say it on a podcast recently. The two of us, we just get better. Like, when everyone else is complaining, we just love it.
Yeah. I've heard Bernard say similar things actually, like when everyone else gets down, it's kind of nice to level up your positivity and it just gives you that confidence to go hard.
And then you can almost start winding them up more because you feel so good that, yeah, they don't know what's going on.
Yeah. So you obviously came in feeling good, like you'd done so much time on the bike in big mountains. You had that, like, I guess, advantage of being positive about the conditions and genuinely feeling like stoked to be there. Did you think you could win it?
I always picture stuff, like imagine stuff in my mind, and coming into that race, I was definitely kind of imagining that, anything's possible. I could do it if I really want to. But we're not really racing that much that year. You don't know where you are on the scale of things. So, but obviously I was still picturing in my mind that, I can do it.
Yeah. And you did.
Yeah.
How was your run?
Yeah, the run was, I knew coming across the line, I'd experienced it like once before, that kind of like a flow state or zen feeling where everything's kind of in slow motion, which is a crazy feeling when you're in it.
Yeah.
It's something that you're just like, that's what you're looking for. Every race run, that's what you're trying to get.
Yeah.
Or like look for or fight towards anyway. And I remember coming down across the line, I was like, yeah, that was good. I had it like that feeling once or twice before. I was like, I think that's a pretty good run. And because it was my first one, I was one of the first down on the hill or dropped in. So I was in the hot seat for so long. Just rider after rider, I was thinking, wow, this is going pretty good. And then it really sunk in when I remember Martin saying, you're guaranteed a medal.
Yeah.
I was like, right, now I really want to win it. Like,
yeah, it starts to get really real,
Yeah. That's when I was like, watching the splits really close then.
And how did it feel then to know that you'd taken, literally at the first big race you'd done, you'd become world champion? Yeah,
with me, not many people hearing of me as a first year junior, I suppose. Definitely came in with a blast. And especially following it up with the next two World Cups, winning them too as well. It was a wild 2 or 3 weeks on the road, with being my first few World Cups and being the first Irish to win World Champs as a junior for Ireland and a Junior World Cup. It was kind of a whirlwind, really.
Yeah, and a lot of people struggle off the back of a World Champs win, but you had no time to think about it. I guess it was straight in. Like Maribor, back-to-back, 2 races, 2 more wins. Yeah. You must have felt almost invincible. Like, you've been to 3 big races, you've won all of them, you're the world champion, you're leading the series.
Yeah, and especially one crashing and winning.
Yeah.
And then the other one I remember winning by like 6 or 7 seconds. I was like, yeah, this is brilliant. This is great.
Easy.
Like, I did not expect that, but I think all that preparation during the summer of me keeping that like positive energy of, I'm still going racing, while everyone else, it was kind of a culture shock when they did announce it, that we are going racing. expecting it, and it took everyone else like a while to get into the mindset that, right, we actually are going racing this late in the year.
Yeah. So you're in that position, 3 wins. We go to loser for the final 2 of that season.
Yeah.
Sort of came undone a little bit. What happened? Were you getting kind of too carried away with it?
I remember the first race in Lausa, flat tire.
Okay.
I remember Loris, he won both Maribor races, so the 2 of us were going into Lausa, the exact same boat. Both of us had won both races, and both of us got a flat tire on the exact same section, the exact same rock.
Crazy.
And I was like, oh, a flat tire, what can you do?
Yeah.
That's all good. And because I was leading by quite a bit, I remember this was a really junior move. In the second race in Lausa, all I had to do was finish top 10 to secure the overall. And I decided I wanted to win the race, to get the overall.
Yeah.
So I went down, just out the start gate, full gas. I remember trying to brake every corner on the way down. And I got about 3/4 of the way down, and there was only so long I can ride that for. And straight over a corner and into the bushes.
And that was it. Through the overall away, right?
Yeah, overall gone.
Yeah. Was it Ethan took it that year?
Yeah.
I heard you say that was the most angry you've ever been after a race.
I probably would say still, yeah.
Yeah.
Still that angry, yeah.
You have clearly...
Actually, I've won up
Okay, go on.
following a year later at Val de Sol. World Champs the year after.
Yeah, you were on there, right?
Yeah.
And it didn't quite come together.
No.
Not good. How do you deal with that then? Because you, like you say, you're a very positive person. You move past things very, very quickly. Yeah. Like, how do you deal with those moments of anger in an example like that?
I suppose you have to use it to like motivate yourself. I remember riding back to the pits out of that finish line, being so motivated to get in the gym and just smash weights off the ground. That's what I used to motivate myself going into that winter.
And yeah, come into 2021, second year junior, a lot of expectation, I guess. You're the reigning world champion. And I'm guessing it's not just expectation from the fans and the media, but you're going to put some pressure on yourself too. Did you feel that coming in?
I felt it a bit. I definitely felt it a bit, but it wasn't anything that I felt like I couldn't handle. It just felt like another year racing, really.
Yeah. But didn't quite go to plan, hey? There was some ups and downs, some
lots
really
of downs,
good splits,
I would say.
Some mechanicals and some injuries. Like
there was lots of good splits that year. Nearly every race there was such good splits, and then crash, flat tire, or something would happen. Like that first race in Leogang, I crashed morning of quali. Just coming into the woods, there was like loads of got cross-rutted on all those ruts. Just wasn't even going fast because you're not going in that fast into that section. I remember that year because the ruts were so deep on that kind of the slippy grass.
Like the right turn into the wood.
Nowadays you can hit it pretty fast because they have like gravel and stuff down.
Yeah.
But back then it was like pretty slow coming in. I remember just landing like so awkwardly, going slowly, right onto my wrist, sprained it like really bad. Got a wrist brace, that was fine. Just got through it that week in Leogang. I think I finished 5th in the race. 5th or 8th, I'm not sure. But I remember I won the split in the woods again. So I was like, sweet. I know I've good pace.
Yeah.
Then we were in Leger for the 2 weeks, which actually not many people know about this part in Leger. This was kind of before all like the massive kind of concussion stuff started coming out. And the week, or kind of the 2 weeks before the Leger World Cup, I was testing a mullet bike.
Okay.
And had a massive crash off a jump. And fried the brain there in that one.
Yeah, it was a pretty bad one, right, from what I hear? Yeah,
that was like cracked the helmet in half, everything. I remember getting like sick and stuff. So that was, spent a few days in a dark room after that. And this was all like early days in the concussion thing before everyone started to really talk about it, and kind of the year before Reese got really public about it.
Yeah.
Now looking back, I should not have been racing at all. I should have probably skipped a few because I remember going into Leger that week, done track walk, couldn't remember any of track walk, any of the lines. Done practice, couldn't ride the bike at all, couldn't remember lines coming into corners.
Yeah.
couldn't remember riding anything, and actually had a small crash again in practice. I remember thinking, this is going from bad to worse.
Yeah.
But actually ended up 5th in that one, so I managed to kind of pull it together a bit. So it wasn't the worst case scenario, but was definitely hoping for more.
Yeah. Do you think deep down you knew you shouldn't have been riding? Were you like trying to convince yourself, or was your brain too fried to even realise you probably shouldn't have been doing it?
I was just... I don't even think I realised what I was doing.
Yeah.
Because I was just so almost asleep.
Yeah.
Sleeping in for like 11, 12 hours a night, everything.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Brutal. And a year as well where Jackson and Jordan entered the junior ranks and brought with it even more media attention. I think especially Jackson at that point was such a big name even before from, balance bike videos when he was 4 or whatever. How did that change things for you? Because there's more media attention, there's these big names, and obviously the super fast riders as well. Like, was it a harder season?
It was definitely a hard season, but it was more, I was trying to just get back up to speed as quick as possible instead of taking the time to like rest up and recover and come back stronger than what I should have done.
Yeah.
But at the time, like all racers, I think we're all trying to rush back from injuries and stuff, which I think is a natural thing for a racer to do though.
Yeah. And did you enjoy trying to compete against those guys?
I did. When later in the year, I would say when I was back to normal and I knew I had the speed. Like I was winning the splits. That second half of the year, I won the splits, the first 3 splits in Val di Sole.
Mm-hmm.
I think I was up in Lenzerheide before the flat tire. I was up on all the splits in Snowshoe again in the first race before the double header. So it was the amount of times I was up at the splits and then I'd explode was ridiculous.
The juniors coming out strong. Towards the end of that season, I think you did try and rein it in a little bit, wasn't it? For the second round in Snowshoe, you just wound the wick down a little bit.
I remember Angel telling me less is more. And I managed to bring home a podium in my last race as a junior, which was quite nice after the year I had. That was actually the first podium that whole year.
That's crazy, isn't it?
After me winning 3 races the year before, I was like... which was nice to end it off on a podium. So that was a kind of a successful season I seen in my eyes, getting a podium after the year I had.
Yeah. Was that like that advice from Angel? Had you had that advice from other people? I'm guessing there was other people around you that were like, come on, just like slow it down a little bit. Why was it that Angel saying it in that way was enough to kind of push you in that direction?
Probably because it was just the last race and I'd realised at this stage so many times I was up. I was almost sick of being up at the splits and crashing. I was like, this is getting out of hand now. But thankfully the last race didn't go completely to shit.
And then 2022, move up to elite.
Yeah.
How did you find that move? It's a big jump for riders.
Yeah, it's definitely a big jump. I remember Lourdes was my first elite race actually.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty tricky track. I remember it being quite techie and awkward, and with it being my first elite race, it's not completely different, but you're kind of on a different time schedule from what I was used to.
Mm-hmm.
Slightly different setup with kind of a transition year, you could say, in the team when it was going from the old YT mob to now, like you could say, the factory kind of YT mob. When it's in-house now.
It was quite a small setup, wasn't it? Really, like
quite a small setup that year compared to what it is now and what's planned. We're going big.
Yeah,
but
did that make a difference to you? Are you the sort of rider that like the setup around you is important and beneficial, or are you the sort of person that could chip up in a battered van and a tiny easy up and still perform?
I think I can perform no matter what it is, but it is nice to have the setup to come back to. It's just like an extra bonus, you could say. Having a nice pits, everything, it's just more comfortable.
Yeah. So elite first year, like I think you had a wrist injury. Was it that year that did you break your wrist?
Later in the year, yeah, halfway through.
So how was it going up to that point? Like, how did you feel about how you were getting on, finding your feet in the elite ranks?
It was slowly starting to progress that year. I remember starting around 50th, mid 40s, worked my way up, and I remember Lenzerheide I was like low 30s, so every race I was slowly climbing positions And going into Andorra, I was feeling pretty good.
Yeah.
Like I was starting to build confidence. I was just taking my time. I was qualified for all I think was it the first 3 or 4 World Cups that year.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't really a case of I was on the borderline. I was like mid-pack, and just made a small mistake in practice in Andorra. A lot of photographers know what that mistake was because they asked me to push back up.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, but it wasn't completely their fault. I'll admit I actually messed up the section and
Okay.
like slid out and blew loads of dust up and rode it on.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I didn't do that great. And they were all roaring, could I go up and do the same thing again?
Okay.
And I was thinking, I didn't mean to do it. I actually need to kind of get that section good because I was struggling in that section.
Yeah.
So I went up, pushed up, and tried doing what I'd done the time before and went horribly wrong. Big OTB into some rocks and broken collarbone, done my AC joint, broke the wrist in 3 places, dislocated it.
Whoa, I didn't realise it was that bad.
Yeah, the wrist was like completely mashed up.
Yeah.
It was just smashed to bits.
Jeez. So
Yeah.
was that surgery then, or?
No, I actually let it heal.
Really?
They must have been used to ski accidents and stuff in Andorra because they put it back into place like so well.
Yeah.
I went to a couple of specialists back at home once I got home, and they were like, they couldn't believe how well that was put in.
That's amazing.
Like, there's no need for surgery
Yeah.
at all.
That's great because a lot of people struggle with like metal work
Yeah.
in their wrists and stuff. There's not a lot of space and
Yeah.
tends to impact your movement. So no lasting effects of that then?
I didn't have anything last year
Mm-hmm.
until this off season again.
Okay.
Slightly like redone my wrist,
Yeah.
but it's been good the last few weeks again.
Okay. That's good to
It
hear.
took a
man.
while to get it back up and running again though.
Yeah.
Wrist, it was playing up for a while.
Definitely. Tricky one. And that sort of wrote off the rest of the season, did it, at that point? Like,
Yeah, I remember trying. My goal was to come back for Leger and Val de Sol, but
Mm-hmm.
I remember the week of Leger World Champs. It was 5 weeks since, or 6 weeks from when I broke my wrist was the start of that race week.
yeah.
And you're meant to have the cast on for 6 weeks, so it was going to be super tight. But I did try and ride. I had the wrist brace, everything, done like 2 runs, but just the World Cup tracks were getting so like beat up and rough and Leger there was some big enough jumps,
Yeah.
and I just didn't have the wrist strength to hold on for those big jumps. But every day at that point, it was getting like better and better. I remember in between Leger and Val de Sol, that few days in the middle,
Mm-hmm.
I actually I remember it actually progressing so fast that I done a photo shoot on kind of a new colorway of the Chuas up in Super Morzine when
Yeah.
it was a bit smoother on the bike park. So it was getting really good. I've done DNA tests and they've said my bone healing and like repairing muscles and everything is like really fast.
Oh, that's cool.
Almost kind of abnormal.
Yeah.
So
Pretty handy given your job.
yeah, that's pretty good, and especially with my dad being a physio, that helps as well.
True.
So I was riding like enduro e-bikes, kind of the odd day of a few runs and downhill, not
Yeah.
trying to over fatigue the wrist. But with there only being Val de Sol left, I decided, and with that being kind of the roughest track of the year,
Yeah.
there's no point in coming back for just one race for what I'm going to get out of it. There's no point. I just hang around, have a good time, and go into the off season fresh.
Yeah, definitely. And 2023 was like another big year of change for YT.
Yeah.
Like the mob started to upscale into the format that we're more familiar with now. They brought Sean in on the downhill side, and then Jack, Casper and Texie on the enduro side. It must have felt good to see the investment and the team growing.
Yeah, good to definitely have a few more people around and kind of the setup getting bigger and bigger, and especially obviously people see it now this year and there's more stuff coming. But last year was good. It was definitely a good starting point coming into the year. I was feeling good in the bike. Having George as my new mechanic last year, everything was getting set up, dialed. I remember thinking, yeah, this is pairing up to be a pretty good one.
Yeah, and how's it been having Jack on the team? I mean, he's a fast downhill rider for sure, and you've spent quite a lot of time with him in the last year or 2.
Yeah, me and Jack are getting on from the minute. It only took like a day or 2 and we were getting on super good. So yeah, I was over at his house this off season for 2 weeks in Oz. Yeah, we spend lots of time with each other in between races, try and get him to a few downhills, even though he doesn't race. But hopefully, I can bring him back onto the downhill side and get him racing.
I think I speak for the fans that we'd all like to see that.
I've been telling him everyone wants everyone wants Jack back on the downhill, but I'm trying to convince him so hard.
Hopefully. Keep working on it, mate. Keep working on it.
Yeah, I want him to join me on the downhill side.
That would be cool. Do you think spending time with Jack has helped like elevate your profile in the sport as well? I mean, Moi Moi TV is so popular, and you've been on that quite a bit. Are you feeling
Huge.
that like growth in your, or like people's awareness of you?
Definitely. With him, he has such a big following on Instagram, especially the YouTube. So many people are watching vlogs now.
Yeah.
And they all love his vlogs, especially when you go to the likes of New Zealand or Australia, with it being kind of down on that side of the world.
Yeah.
Especially Australia. They go, he's like a celebrity. It's ridiculous.
And so they recognise you, right?
Yeah,
I guess as well, off the back of it.
Yeah, straight away. Because obviously I'm in the vlogs quite a bit nowadays whenever we're at double headers and training together. It's just me and Jack are getting up to fun stuff every day. So
it's cool.
It's kind of vlog gold, really.
Yeah. Do you think about that like non-racing side of things? Like obviously you have a value to a brand, and a big part of that is your race results. That's your number one thing. But like, are you aware of trying to build your own kind of, I guess, persona within the sport alongside it?
Yeah, I remember 2022, I was like, oh, should I focus on results or more social media? Obviously, I was still racing, but to try and get out more content while in between races. And then 2022 off season going into 23, my dad was like, you're going to have to start putting up more social media stuff. And I was like, no, this year I'm going to let the results speak for themselves, and hopefully that's what happens. I get good enough results and that'll do. And it worked out.
Did work out.
Yeah.
It did work out. Do you have a manager that looks after like that stuff as well, like dealing with partners and deals? And...
I do know, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Paul from Net Performance.
Okay. Yeah. What is their role? Because I don't think many people are super familiar with like how that works in mountain biking.
Yeah, so especially with how it's going nowadays with trying to get out the industry kind of more known, you could say, and get some outside industry sponsors.
Yeah.
It's definitely, for a racer, it's hard with us focusing on race and training and everything. We don't have time to be dealing with the brands directly all the time in the off season, and to have someone reach out and look for brands like Paul does for me, and he works with some of the other riders like Reese and Ronan as well.
Yeah.
Is a massive help. It kind of takes the stress off us. We just let Paul deal with it.
Yeah. Well, it's worked out for Reese, right?
Yeah, big time.
When's the fast car arriving, Oisin?
A fast car would be nice. Even a van would be nice.
Yeah, I know that feeling. Well, let's talk about the 2023 season. I think it's fair to say up until Snowshoe, like on the timesheets, like if you just look at placings, it was a bit up and down. Like what was going on from your perspective? How are you looking at it?
Yeah, it was a bit inconsistent when you look back, but when I was on, I was pretty on. I remember the first race was I lost my shoe in qualifying.
Oh, yeah, I'd forgotten about that.
That was wild. I don't know how that happened.
And you rode down just on the pedal, right?
Rode down the rest of the way, hit all the jumps, and Lenzerheide, which has some big drops and jumps in the finish. Rode down, actually, the bottom of my foot was so bruised.
I bet.
For a few days, or 2 weeks really.
Yeah.
And cut from the pins and the pedals. Like, I tried to ride, if you try it now, it's so sore to ride around the car park. I don't know how I done it at the time.
Adrenaline, eh?
I just decided, I'm going to go for it still. Remember, I was like less than a second off qualifying with no shoe.
Insane.
I remember people, when I came into the finish line, were all just looking at me like, where is your shoe? Then we went to Leogang.
Yeah, tightened your shoes up a bit more.
Tightened up my shoes a bit more. Done quite good there. 17th, best first top 20, best elite result so far.
Yeah.
Val de Sol on, then from that, first practice run, just cruising, just rolling my way down, kind of checking the track out, rolling down too slow was the problem. I've actually learned that from that mistake. You're better off riding a small bit faster and you'll be more alert. I was just riding too slow, rolling down into this dusty bit, and my front wheel just slid through the dust. That I was going so slow, actually was one of those ones where you keel over or fall over.
Yeah.
You don't even have time to unclip. Twisted my ankle really badly. And that was so sore to ride with. I remember taping it up. I have a picture on my phone and my like toes are black. Ankles just like so bruised. Basically just spent the rest of the time following Ronan that weekend, and he said he could hear me going when I'd land off jumps behind him. He could hear me like making noises. It was that sore. But I'm quite good at like with some music at the top, hyping myself up. That I'd hype myself up so much to not feel the pain dropping in. I think I kind of overhyped myself because I went out the start gate not feeling any pain in the ankle.
Yeah.
And just going down ready for it because I hadn't practiced like the track at speed with the ankle being so sore. I just went into one section kind of not, I wouldn't say fast, just not hadn't come in on that line with that speed and ran a bit wide and crashed in one of the rock gardens. So that was kind of that weekend over and done with. But had 2 weeks off then going into Fort William. Didn't really ride the downhill bike at all in between there. Just rode e-bikes a bit, done loads of ankle mobility, rehab stuff on the ankle. Went into Fort William. First run, I was like, yeah, feeling good. Ankle's a bit stiff, but feeling good. Finished 12th there in that one with the rain coming down. I was happy when I seen the rain come down. That was sick. I always like when it's heavy rain for everyone, and that's always good. So first top 15, I was like sick.
Stoked.
You're starting to slowly get better and better, even though a few hiccups at the start. Kind of Fort William was the start really where it all started going smoothly, you could say.
And then we went from there to Valnor, didn't we?
Yeah, to Andorra.
Yeah.
Got my first top 10 then. Went to 9th. So
it
was like from top 20 to top 15 to top 10. I was like, yeah, it's getting pretty good.
On a good trajectory.
Yeah, on a good trajectory. And went from then to Ludenville.
Yeah.
Ludenville was good. I remember 8 in semis. So I was like, sick. Another top 10 in semis. Then crashed in the finals, but I was definitely on for a top 10. Round 8 again. Crashed in the same place as Charlie and Benoit.
That like open off, slightly off camera.
It was kind of where you come out of the trees. It was like a damp spot from the rain the night before.
Yeah.
It was catching so many of us out where obviously Charlie crashed. Such a kind of silly place you could say to crash. It was just a washout.
Yeah.
And Charlie actually broke his wrist there, and then Benoit had a big crash. I had a crash. It was just kind of an unlucky one really, but knew I had the pace. Splits were good, so I was happy with that.
Then Leger
got sick. I got sick in Leger. I remember
Everyone
Laurie
was
at
sick,
the time.
Yeah.
Remember just the brain fog. Everything was just so under the weather. And I remember coming down in quali, I was just dead. The whole body was dead. And I remember making massive mistakes really. It was just slightly offline, just my head wasn't in it, just a bit smothered and stuff, and I was way off the pace that weekend. Which is finishing 70th or 80th. I was thinking, whoa.
It's kind of fair though if you're feeling like that, right? But
then had a few days in Morzine after, cruising around, went home. Didn't ride my downhill bike for 2 weeks. After that quali run, I rode enduro in Morzine for a few days, but didn't ride downhill. So went home, few e-bikes, hung around, didn't do too much. I was like, yeah, these 2 last races, rest up, go in. And first practice run with Ronan and Andy Culp in Snowshoe was so good when I got to the bottom. I was like, that was a surprisingly good first run. I was like, I haven't ridden my downhill bike since qualifying run in Leger 2.5 weeks ago. That was really surprising.
That's cool.
Run after run, just boom, boom, boom.
And I guess you knew Ronan had gone well there the year before, right? And you ride with Ronan a lot. I guess if Ronan goes well on a track, there's maybe a fairly good chance you can. Is that?
Yeah, usually if we're going, like we might follow each other, I'll go first, he'll go second. We take turns, and if we're both going fast and we're both pushing each other on and we're keeping up with each other, we know like, we're both going to be on pace this weekend.
Yeah.
And I remember I hadn't done a full run at all until qualifying. Done qualifying and crossed the line. I was like, that was a bit easier than I thought, because sometimes you stop, and when you stop then you realise how out of breath you are.
Yeah.
So got to the bottom. and qualified 5th. I was like, I definitely was not expecting that. And Ronan was like, oh, that's where I finished qualified last year when I got the podium in qualifying. It's like, oh, sick. Then that was that day done. Rested up, watched a few bits. Everyone was telling me I was riding good. I was like, sick, yeah.
Is your confidence like ratcheting up as you're seeing that result and people telling you look good? Like you're like, oh yeah, okay,
yeah,
starting to believe it a bit more.
Yeah. Rested up. Next day, 2nd in semis. I was like, I must be doing something right, because I didn't feel like I was going like doing anything that special. I was just riding how I was, just fluid, like flowy. 2nd, I was like, yeah, right. There's only one thing to do now. And I remember at the start of the week, I remember one thing. Andy Kolb telling me, I like the wet races, and I would say I'm a pretty good wet rider. I always do good in the wet. And he told me, if you can ride a wet track fast, you can ride a dry track fast. I was never thinking, yeah, you're pretty right there. I suppose that is true. And yeah, that was kind of I suppose, changed something in my mind.
Yeah.
Just felt good from there on in. And then the 2nd in semis, I remember warming up, and he was like probably top 10 as well. And he was kind of warming up across from me, and he just said, go for it. I was like, I'm going to go for it now.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, I'm going for it. And yeah, just went all in.
What was going on in your head dropping into that run? Like, it's super quiet at the top, right?
Yeah.
When there's only 2 of you still up there.
Yeah.
That must have been a new experience, a different experience. How did you feel as you went into the run?
I was kind of thriving off it.
Okay.
Because it was kind of back to 2020 again, when I was doing good as a junior. I was at the top, one of the last men down. You kind of feel like, yeah, this is what I've looked up towards. This is what I've trained towards as a kid. I'm going to make the most of it here. I'm going to prove a point.
Yeah. Fair. And your run in general looked, like you say, it was flowing and going super well. That big double drop in the middle nearly had you though, eh?
That was close. That was a bit too close for comfort. But at the same time, I remember being in the run like, yeah, I'm still under control here.
Okay, it didn't feel
I remember being like, ooh, that was close.
Yeah.
But I still have it under control. Just keep it going down into that bottom rock garden, in through the woods, you could say, and push hard for the sprint.
Yeah. Was that flow state there that you talked about in some of those earlier ones?
Yeah. I got it again there.
Yeah. And did that go all the way to the finish line, or is there a point at which your head's like, this is going good, like this could be all right?
There was one spot or two where I was like, yeah, this is good. I'm hitting all my lines here good. Stay in the zone, keep pushing. And yeah, when I came out of those last woods, I remember giving a glance over towards the screen in the corner of your eyes. I think lots of riders try and do to see where you are. And I remember seeing it was like green. I was like, right, I'm definitely pedaling hard now. I'm pedaling really hard.
You were on the gas heavy, yeah. Yeah, so you come over the line into the hot seat.
Yeah.
And you know there's one more rider left on the hill. So you're going to get second, which is incredible. And it's Loic Bruni. Like, if anyone is going to beat anyone, it's Loic that's going to do it, right? Like, probably the most dangerous rider on the circuit still. How were you feeling sat on the box watching that run?
Yeah, it was wild. And especially coming down with Ronan in second. It was It was a massive day for Irish kind of downhill, you could say, or cycling. And I was pretty out of breath. I remember coming across the line, like, thank God I got across the line, because I just gave everything up there, which I think I showed. Went up into the hot seat, kind of as I'm putting my sunglasses on, and as I'm like, I wasn't really looking at the screen exactly. Like on the hot seat, you have it down in front of you to watch.
Okay.
I remember putting the glasses on. Sun was kind of shining. Wasn't quite exactly looking at the screen as Like went down. That's why my face was so shocked. I didn't see him crash.
No way.
I just heard like a massive roar, and Ronan just grabbed me, and I looked down, and he's getting up off the ground, and I'm like, no way.
Yes, I think Ronan said it into your ear, didn't he? Like, you just won a World Cup.
Yeah, and I was like, that is, I was just speechless at the time.
Yeah, your face is priceless.
Yeah.
Like, it's so cool to see that just like
Yeah.
disbelief that this thing has happened to you.
Yeah, because I remember thinking, yeah, this is going to be close. I remember I was still slightly up on the splits. It was getting closer and closer as he was getting his way down. And I remember thinking, oh, he has the lockout on his suspension. That if that could be enough on the sprint to get me.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, oh, this is going to be so close. And yeah, then boom, down he went.
Crazy. How did it feel then to finally take an elite World Cup win after some challenging years? Right, it's not been plain sailing since that junior World Champs.
Yeah, it was kind of a weight off your shoulder, you could say. You'd proven the point. Now you've got it out of the way. Now you just have to focus on doing your thing and kind of win a few, or try and win a few more, do a few more podiums. But now you've one out of the way, you can kind of relax. That's that first one out of the way. You can do your thing now.
Yeah, and hard to celebrate, right? Because you're back to back into Mont Saint Anne.
Yeah, it was hard to celebrate, but we still went out.
You still went.
Yeah,
good lad.
As Jack said, you have to celebrate these kind of things.
Definitely, man.
Yeah.
You've got to mark that. Doesn't happen every day, does it?
Yeah.
For sure. How did that impact your life then between Snowshoe and Mont Saint Anne? Was there a lot of attention, a lot of media that came with that win?
Yeah, it was a big change going into the next week. There was a big change in cameras. So many more people, the amount of interviews with UCI, Warner Brothers, even the local mayor of Mont Saint Anne, press conferences in Mont Saint Anne with the hotel organisers. Most of it was actually in French, so because they speak French there and stuff.
Yeah,
I actually didn't really know what was going on half the time because there was a lot of French being spoken, but yeah, it was a massive change in cameras, even at the top of the hill.
Yeah.
The amount of more people that had cameras pointed on you, but I didn't take much notice. It was literally like I was as a junior.
Yeah.
Again, it was no different. So if anything, I was enjoying it.
Cool. Did it change your preparation for Mont Saint Anne in any way? Did it get in the way, or you just crack on?
No, I just cracked on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. How was Mont Saint Anne then? 12th in the end. Were you happy with that
12th
after
in
a
the
win?
end.
You backed it up pretty well, I'd say.
I was happy with that.
Yeah.
Considering I'd never been at that track before, it was my first year there. So I spent the first few runs just following Ronan and Andy again. Kind of following them, learning their lines. They'd been there, I think, twice. Ronan had been there twice, I think. Maybe 3 times. And Ronan or Andy had been there a fair few times as well. So it was good to have them in front of me, towing me up to speed. I remember it was a pretty heavy weekend for every rider, I think, getting flats. So it was kind of just watching where I was going, riding smart, done seeding pretty okay. I think I finished 18th in seeding. Wanted a small bit more, but I was still happy. I was like, yeah, sweet.
Yeah.
That'll do. And yeah, 12th in the end, which I think was still a high to finish on. I was like, yeah, I'll take that.
Yeah.
Happy days.
100%.
And especially with it being, I remember the track drying out a bit as the race went on a small bit. So, because the riders were getting faster, or the speed trap was getting faster as the riders went on.
Yeah.
Remember, I came down and I was like, yeah, that was a really good run. And the riders that were in one or two of the riders that were down before me had tear-offs on. And I remember I was actually contemplating in the start gate to put roll-offs on because it was starting to spit rain. And then I think I was just on that border of, it was just a few raindrops coming down. Then Andy came down, smashed the time. He was like, yeah, that was a really good run. And then it was kind of starting to get faster and faster and faster. But it wasn't too much of a difference. I was still stoked with that result.
Yeah, incredible way to finish the season.
Yeah.
And you flew straight back to Ireland to celebrate, right?
Yeah. So that was a pretty wild few days once we got back. Biking the IE at home.
Yeah.
Booked out a whole kind of club, you could say, where we done a Q&A for everyone, sold loads of tickets. And I actually didn't even go home. We went straight from the airport to Ronan's house for 20 minutes to get changed.
Yeah.
And went straight from there to this place. All of our friends, all mountain bikers in the Irish community, everyone was there. So it was a massive night out. I think there was 200 or 300 tickets sold.
Amazing.
And then all of our family, friends, everything. Then, yeah, went out in Dublin after that. It was pretty good fun. We had the likes of Greg Callahan, all those guys. It was good fun. Massive, just Irish mountain bike gang, really.
That's amazing. Is cycling is it quite big out there? Like, are you guys well known, like, within the community? Do you know what I mean? Like,
In the mountain bike community, I would say,
Yeah.
it's getting bigger and bigger all the time.
But outside of that, is like cycling, do people know it? Do you know what I mean? Like, can you walk down the street and people might be like,
It's definitely starting to get bigger.
Yeah, okay.
Especially with what me and Ronan are doing with it, getting into newspapers and stuff. It's definitely getting into the more households, definitely at home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So yeah, awesome way to end the season. I'm guessing that fired you up for a big off season of, getting on the tools, getting in the gym, throwing some weights around. And there's some big changes for the mob, right? The first of which is the new bike.
Yeah.
When did you first get the chance to swing a leg over one?
November.
Okay.
So I was only home like a month.
Yeah.
Not even a month, and I had the bike already, so I was stoked to get on that.
Yeah. How do you go about setting up on a new bike then? Because there's a lot more that can be done with this new one, right? There's more adjustment.
So I just, first of all, put in the same setup as I was using, the same suspension, everything, just to get kind of a base, or kind of base something off the old bike.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not a massive difference, as you can see, it looks pretty similar, but it's kind of, we changed stuff that you can't see by the eye. It's more flip chips, suspension kinematics, geometry.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it was kind of fits me better. I felt more comfortable from the first run. I was like, yeah, this is nice. Didn't have to change suspension too much, which was nice. So I didn't spend a crazy amount of time puzzling with suspension and everything. Just knew what kind of reach I wanted, what rear end length I wanted, straight into the long mode and the flip chip on the back, and I was ready to go. I just had to test the MX or mullet.
Yeah.
And full 29.
Yeah. And you ran full 29 at Fort William this weekend.
Yeah.
Is that the plan?
All year.
Yeah.
I'm going to stick with full 29.
Okay. I mean, I could see 100% why at Fort William it's an advantage. Like, what is it about full 29 that keeps you on it for the whole season?
I remember I first tried MX properly when I was in Queenstown.
Okay.
And I was riding with Ronan, loved it. I was like, this is unbelievable. Why didn't I do this earlier? I'm not sure if because I'd rode those tracks and I was following Ronan and I was just following his line. It felt good. I hadn't ridden too much downhill at that stage because I actually got injured just before in California. But it was feeling good. But I was feeling better every day, so it was kind of hard to tell. Then went to Australia again and felt terrible on the bike there. I don't know what was going on. Went home, didn't feel great either. I was like, I don't feel good in the bike. I was confused, or not confused, but I was like, oh, this is strange. Put the full 29er wheel back on. I was like, yeah. Instantly, first run, I was like, here we go. Bike is just, I'm just riding so smooth.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, this is perfect.
I guess you're so familiar with it, right?
Yeah.
You've ridden it in that 29er setup for so long now.
5 years now.
Yeah. It's second nature to you, I suppose. That, like, getting buzzed by the tire every now and again is something that happens and you've learned to deal with it. And
yeah. And I think this weekend it was looking quite good.
Yeah, for sure. It's going to roll over stuff easier, right? That's the nature of it. Are you fussy on setup in general? Are you like the sort of guy that will like tweak and look for things, or are you a bit of a set and forget?
I would say in the middle.
Okay.
I'm definitely of the setting the bike up. I'm definitely kind of I like to have everything the way I like it and to feel comfortable.
Yeah.
But once it's set up, I tend to just set it up and forget about it and just ride it how it is and don't worry.
And are there certain things that have to be just right for you? Like some people are fussy about
like the brakes.
Yeah.
Like my brakes have to be super snappy.
Yeah.
Like once they start getting spongy or anything, it feels wrong. But then when you see if you come ride any of my bikes during the middle of the off season, when I don't have George around or or George, my mechanic, doing it, you just get used to riding brakes because I ride so often during the off season that the brakes are just pads. I probably should change the pads more often as well. That would make a big help. But it's nice to have George around at the races with the bike feeling bang on every run.
Yeah. And are you using data much or not really?
No, not too much.
Okay.
We used it a bit at the start, all right, with the new bike and the old bike. It was more, you have to have so much data collected already and you have to be constantly collecting data to make use of it, and then you have to have to go to a race with to make any use of it, you have to have the data kind of to base off.
Yeah.
And we had no. It's just a massive hassle, really, to start it. But I suppose you do have to start somewhere collecting the data. But now we have YT's test rider Eric Armish on the team, helping out with kind of lines and riding and bike development as part of in the team and riding practice. That's kind of what he's going to be doing for us.
Okay, that's
helping out anyway.
Yeah,
with that stuff.
Awesome. And you also had some weights around the underside of the bottom bracket, part of the frame in Fort William. What's the thinking behind that? Like, how does that improve the bike for you?
I first put them on in Andorra last year.
Okay.
I remember struggling with traction in that kind of moon dust, that really fine dust in Andorra. And first run, straight away, I was like, you could just feel the side knobs of the tyre hooking up into the dirt. I was like, that feels good. No wonder, like, there's a couple of us that do it, and our bike is kind of light on the light side.
Okay.
So it was nice to get some extra weight and just keep it more planted. But
yeah,
it was definitely a big upgrade.
Yeah, and that stays on irrespective of what track or.
Yeah. I haven't really played around too much if it's a real muddy race. Mm-hmm. Obviously, there's a lot of mud getting on the bike, but I probably just tend to leave it on really just to keep the variables the same.
Yeah, you don't like to mess about too much when it's...
Especially, I've ridden it during the off-season with the weight on, but in the mud, I think I'd just leave it the same really.
Yeah, fair play. The other big change then is Valley joining the team.
Yeah.
The biggest name, I guess, in the women's side of the sport, like world champion, world overall winner, and that comes with a lot of media attention. I guess it brings more budget potentially into the team. I don't know. How have you found that? Because it's quite a big shift. You had a crew that you knew really well, and then you've brought in someone that's this big celebrity onto the team that creates all that attention. Yeah,
it's good having Valley on board. Definitely another like massive or big profile name in the sport coming onto the team, with the team heading in the right direction. And yeah, she's a racer. Like, she proves that on the racetrack. She wins nearly every time. Yeah, it's good having her on board. It definitely brings a lot of media attention. That's for sure.
Yeah,
having someone in the rainbow stripes in your pits. Obviously, the cameras and the fans all want to come by and get photos and autographs, but that's nice too. It brings a kind of a better positive energy around the pits with having so many people around.
Yeah, that's cool. And you've got, I believe, hopefully soon, a more updated pit setup, right? There's
next weekend
might be a truck for Poland.
Next weekend, yeah.
Excellent. Have you seen anything?
I seen like a kind of a PDF file of pictures of but not anything in real life yet.
Yeah.
I don't even think the mechanics have really seen much, so they're kind of keeping it as one big surprise. But from what I've heard, it's top notch. This is going to be MXGP kind of level.
Amazing.
It's going to be sick.
Yeah, and like you say, with more media attention and more people coming to the team, it is nice, I guess, to have a bit more of a place to hide yourself away when you need that time, because it's all well and good earlier in the week when everything's a bit more lighthearted, but the closer we get to the race runs, the more, I guess, athletes want to like just hunker down and tick their own boxes. And
the biggest thing for me about having a truck is probably whether it's really hot or really cold.
Okay.
You've somewhere, if it's really hot, you have aircon.
Yeah.
Then when it's really cold, you've somewhere where it's warm.
Yeah.
And you can get in, get changed. You're not in like just the pits on the ground with a van. Obviously, our pits are really good the way it is, but with a truck, it's going to be, you can't get any better. It's going to be a nice place to be in general during the day on track walk when you're spending a lot of time just chilling in the pits. It's going to be a nice place to work, and especially for the mechanics more so. They spend all their day in there, so it's going to be nice for them to have a nice workspace.
I'm excited to see it, mate. So yeah, we'll briefly touch on Fort William before we start to wrap up. Like, the speed's there by the looks of it. That's a good start to the weekend, and then an unfortunate like time and the weather window that took a few big scalps this weekend.
Yeah, first practice run, I was feeling good in track. Like, the bike felt good, everything. And everyone was saying to me about how good I looked on the bike. I just felt comfortable. I didn't feel like I was doing anything out of the ordinary. Again, like Snowshoe, I was just feeling on form, good speed, riding with confidence the whole way down. Qualifying run came 5th place. I was stoked on that.
Yeah.
Like, I was not expecting it, and considering that I didn't have the best of runs, my first split was 22nd, and then I was pulling back kind of time as you went down. I think my third split was second.
Okay.
So
Sweet.
I was actually quite on it for the qualifying run.
Yeah, that's the woods, right?
Yeah, which is kind of similar to home for me.
Okay.
But I wasn't expecting to be fifth. I was like, sweet. Yeah, that's a nice one. And then semis came. There was a big track delay. Unfortunately, lots of people heard Lucas Cruz had a big crash. So that kind of put a bit of delay on track. But he seems to be resting up or got a surgery and stuff. So he's on the mend now.
Okay, that's good.
And while we're up doing semis, kind of the rain slowly started to pick up as I was going up in the lift. I remember seeing some like raindrops in the front of the gondola, and it caught quite a few of us out. But still, there's no excuse, because Troy, Luca, Finn and they all still went fastest in the rain, so it wasn't like it wasn't impossible.
Yeah.
Just caught a few of us out, so there was no excuses. They still went faster than the people earlier that came down before us.
But good to know the pace is there, I guess.
Yeah, good to know that I'd done a podium speed qualifying run, you could say. Just need to do that in the finals next weekend.
Happy days, mate.
Yeah.
Right, we should start wrapping up. We'll ask our 4 final questions that we've asked for most people. The first of those, if our listeners had £150, about 175 euros to spend to improve their performance on a bike, what would you recommend they go spend it on?
Ooh, that is a tricky one. Not much budget there, is there?
No.
Especially with the price of parts and stuff nowadays, eh?
I need to put that up for inflation, probably.
I would say tyres.
Yeah, okay.
Continental Cryptotal tyres.
That's the way. Are you front and rear Cryptotal generally?
Front on the front and rear on the rear. And get some car alloy wheel weights that I have on the bottom of my bash guard.
Okay.
Get 500 grams on there.
500 grams.
Yeah.
It's a good start, yeah?
Yeah, it's a good start.
Interesting. I've never played with weights. I should give it a try, because it's
Yeah.
an easy thing to pop on and off.
And they're not that expensive either.
Yeah.
Only a couple of euro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I like it. Good stuff. All right. Next one. If you could wind back the clock and sit down with yourself age 16, what advice would you give him?
Age 16, what year was that? Probably just trust the process. Don't rush it. Everything will... Obviously, when you're 16, you want to be on a factory team there and then. You want to just... Everything... You're quite impatient as a young kid, looking up to the people, and especially with other people getting more support possibly around you. You just have to trust the process.
Yeah. Like it. Good one. Okay. Coaching. If you could have a coaching session from anyone, past or present, who would it be, and what would you want to learn from them?
Probably either PT or Manar, I would say.
Okay.
Just because two massive icons of the sport, are two of the greatest. Just see what they have to say and see what they could get me to do better.
Could you see yourself having a long career? Like both those guys, I think, raced for a good long time. Well, Greg's still doing it. Like, do you aspire to have that, like, a long career, or would you rather have a shorter, like, punchier career?
But do you still have the same good results in the long career, or?
Well, I don't know. Like, are you in it for the long haul? Do you know what I mean?
I don't see myself ever not riding bikes. Even if I retire at 40 or 50, I'm going to ride bikes the rest of my life. Even after that, I don't know much else. It's just what I do now for a living and every day. But yeah, obviously a longer career, the better.
Sounds good to me. All right, last one. What's something that you do every day that you feel benefits you?
Every day that benefits me? I've started making my bed in the morning every day.
Okay.
That's actually quite a good one.
It's very grown up, mate.
Yeah, I'm maturing with my old age. 21 next week, so...
there you go.
Yeah, there we go.
What made you start doing that?
I don't know, probably just respecting the stuff you own, really.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And do you like having that ritual of doing it? Like, does it make you feel, like, good or proud, or...
Yeah, proud of the stuff you own, really, because obviously if you... Or starts the day off, you get like a start from scratch, really.
Yeah.
Go out with a fresh mind.
Nice.
Yeah.
Like it. Cool, man. Well, it's been super fun hearing about your career so far. We're a few years in. There's some pretty outstanding results in there.
Yeah.
No doubt there's more to come. I hope you have an awesome season on the bike. If people want to follow you and look at what you're up to, where's the best place for them to look?
Instagram. Yeah. Oisin O'Callaghan, DH.
Nice. I'll stick a link in the show notes to that. But yeah, thanks, mate. Enjoy the rest of your season, and we'll see how you get on when the big truck rocks up next weekend.
Thank you very much. I'll have to give you a tour.
Thanks, mate. Nice one.
No worries.
Cheers.
Cheers.